Let me give you a little bit of a brief review of the Ki-61. I'll probably do a lot more of these as I'm getting more into historical battles. Generally, I guess depending on each player's playstyle, there'll be certain aircraft that better fit how you like to play the game or how you kind of perform better in certain aircraft over others, and the reasons why. This is one of the planes I began playing with in historical battles from the beginning because I chose. There were two things that I was looking for when I first started historical battles. I wanted a plane that was first relatively easy to maneuver. Now, why is that? Well, for those of you who are arcade players predominantly, like myself, and then start to begin to get into historical battles, it is a lot more difficult to fly the plane. So I chose maneuverability because it would be a little more forgiving and a little easier to fly. And secondly, I was looking for a plane that had decent firepower, but that balanced decent firepower with a relatively high amount of ammunition. Now, this Ki-61 is I think it's the LB. I don't know if it's LB or IB, but it's the level 6 Ki-61, and it has four 12.7 millimeter machine guns with 1,800 rounds of ammunition. Now, you'll find me often saying 50 cal, and then, that is synonymous with 12.7 millimeter machine guns. They are both very similar in size, if not the same. So either of those terms will work. And as you should be aware by now, most of the American aircraft use 50 cal or 12.7 millimeter machine guns as their standard. So you'll see me kind of flying high up and then looking for targets to engage in. But a little bit of background about the Ki-61. It was an Army plane as opposed to a Japanese Navy plane. And if you know anything about the Japanese in World War II, the Army branch and the Navy branch did not get along. Their competition for contracts and all kinds of things was pretty aggressive, which is kind of funny because you think you're fighting a war. Why are you going to be, unfriendly with another branch of the military that is helping to fight your enemies? And look at this. What do we have here? A nice juicy yak. Now, I need to be a little more accurate. In historical battles, you do not have the target lead indicator that you get to enjoy in arcade battles. But historical battles is unforgiving. You cannot make mistakes. You get one life. Things are more difficult, so it can be tough. But when you do good, man, look at this accuracy right here, top-notch stuff. Bullet hose time. But here we go. This is a perfect example of why I chose this plane. It is maneuverable and it has a lot of ammunition. So when you fly like a retard like myself here, and you're bullet hosing at the enemy because you don't have your, how would you say, your spacing and your aiming very well, you're going to be figuring it out as you go. And what better aircraft to do that with than this? So, yeah, it was an Army plane, and it was very different than what the Japanese higher-ups had believed in using for the longest time. They believed in using light aircraft that were highly maneuverable and relatively lightly armed. And it wasn't until the Ki-61 really that they kind of started changing, what they had used for so long and adopted an aircraft like this, which was better armed and a little better armored as well. But in order to convince the Japanese senior officers to kind of adopt and put this plane into production, they had to show why it was a good aircraft. And they did that by having a fly-off. And in this fly-off, they had two prototypes of the Ki-61, a Ki-43 Hayabusa, and a Lag-3 that they got from a Russian defector, and a Bf-109 E3, as well as a P-40 Kitty Hawk that the Japanese had captured. And they flew all of these aircraft in a number of tests. And the Ki-61 had a better top speed than all of the aircraft and was only outmaneuvered by the Hayabusa, which is arguably, goodbye Mr. Chaika, which is arguably one of the most maneuverable aircraft in War Thunder. So there I got some decent aim, and I was able to bring down that Chaika. Now with Chaikas in historical battles, you're basically like, I want really good maneuverability and decent firepower at the cost of speed. And I mean, you saw right there, if you get hit a few times, you're going down. So let's see. But yeah, the Ki-61 was really, the Japanese pilots really liked it because it had self-sealing fuel tanks, which were not common in a lot of Japanese aircraft, and that means once you catch on fire, you're going to explode. Pretty much. They also had upgraded armament. They had 4 12.7mm machine guns in this model. In some of the others, I think the level 5 had 2 7.7s and 2 12.7 machine guns. Man, this congestion's annoying. But the design of this aircraft, look at it right now. You see that intake on the bottom. It is not what a lot of the Japanese aircraft look like. And when the Allies first saw this aircraft, they thought it was a German or an Italian design. And look at this maneuverability. I can even, granted he is being chased, but this is a pretty good plane for someone who's kind of like an arcade dogfighter to kind of, you know, dip their toes in historical battles. If I was a little more accurate, could have gotten another kill. Look at all these guys just like aggroing to that guy. But so yeah, the first time a Ki-61 was ever seen was during the Doolittle raid, where the Americans, after Pearl Harbor, loaded up a bunch of B-24s on some aircraft carriers and were like, hey, Japan, fuck off, man. We're gonna bomb you too. Which was a pretty big kick to Japan's morale as far as the civilians were concerned, because they thought their island was untouchable. They just lay a huge blow on the American naval forces in the Pacific, and then, oh, your home island is getting bombed. It didn't do a lot of damage, but it was more for a like, hey man, you are not untouchable. But so that was the first time a Ki-61 was seen by the Allies, and they misidentified it as a Bf-109 at the time. And eventually the Allies' call sign for this aircraft was the Tony, because, you know, hey Tony, they thought it was an Italian designed aircraft. But this game is winding down. You can see the ticker going down, so I'm going for targets of opportunity. I shoot a good 3 of these, but only get credit for 2. But you know what? We're racking up the free XP. And did relatively decent here. I have a second, that was a full game. I have a highlight reel, I guess, or a highlighted section from a second game coming up. But the Ki-61 was also used in World War II to ram B-29s. I mean, as we all know, Japan was getting relatively desperate. The bombing campaign by the U.S. in the Pacific was just beastly. And they were trying to come up with anything they could to get rid of these bombers. The Germans even got desperate enough to where they did some ramming attacks. Now, right here, I'm going after this PE-3, and there's a friendly Ki-61 right behind me, getting very close, so I decided to peel off. And look at that. I found a nice little target. Now, I peel off that PE3. The Ki-61 took him down, as you'll see right here. I get a nice assist for it. Then this Chika comes in and snipes that guy, which could have been me had I not pulled away. He snipes him out. He's dead. And then I get this Chika, which is just ironic. Like, imagine if I had stayed on that PE3, I might have gotten rammed by a friend, or I might have been killed by this guy that I just burned down right there. And then that SU-2 had just flown by, so I'm like, well, hello, Mr. SU-2, it's time to die. But back to our little history lesson here. Man. Alright, give me a minute, I need to blow my nose. I will mute this microphone. You gotta watch this. This is always fun. Historical battle kills are so satisfying. And that guy gets burned up. I peeled away because I wanted to avoid his rear gunner. They can be rather damaging, especially to lightly armored Japanese aircraft. Boom. That's startling. Getting hit with AAA, and that'll keep you guessing. So I dived through this trench to avoid that AAA, and then I see some nice ripe little targets that are able to be taken down by machine guns. You know, still gotta work on that accuracy though. Whoops. Can't really do much against those light tanks, but there are a decent amount of artillery and AAA batteries in the area. But yeah, so there were three really relatively famous Japanese Ki-61 pilots for the work they did in ramming B-29s. I mean, and you were like, well, how could these guys be famous? Well, they ram a B-29 and then they survive. Then they fly up and do it again. These guys did it a few times. There's even this one guy named Sergeant Masao Itagaki, and he was a double recipient of Japan's Bukosho, and pardon my pronunciation. But basically the Bukosho Award was the equivalent of Britain's Victoria Cross Award or the United States Medal of Honor. So he received this twice. You're like, wow, that guy must have, you know, died a very heroic death, you know, as far as Japan's concerned, ramming B-29s. No, he survived the war. These guys ram planes, land their aircraft, parachute out. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, you wonder how how you can do that. I mean, you can't do that in War Thunder, guys, so don't get any ideas. But one moment while I fix my nose. Yeah, a couple second temporary reprieve until my nose decides to clog up again. Another good thing about this aircraft is it was known to have a really good diving performance, and it's always fun to snipe a few extra little ground targets. The thing is equipped with 4 12.7mm machine guns. It is more than enough to bring down most fighter aircraft. If you get good shots on heavier aircraft or twin-engine aircraft, take down some of their engines, or are able to snipe pilots, it's always good with that as well. So I am here looking for all the soft targets I can get. I want to farm some experience. And I find the last soft target on the board, save for the anti-aircraft emplacements that are guarding their airfield. So at this point I decide to head back to base, and now we fast forward a little later. This is kind of like a point in the game. This is a good, I don't know, between 5 and 10 minutes later. I'm chasing this yak who's rather maneuverable. I've been getting lots of hits on him, but as we all are kind of familiar, yaks are rather hardy. And then this PE2 kind of joined the party, and he had been around for a while. They basically played ping pong with me. One would make a run on me, I'd start chasing him, and the other one would make a run on me. So I never really got a good, like, I could have easily outmaneuvered this yak, Or I could have easily outmaneuvered the PE2, but those two guys together, you know, if I could hit them, obviously I would have been able to take them down earlier. I got hits, but never really any critical hits on either because my time was split. I thought this guy was crashing right here. He was skimming the deck right there. Take a few hits and the game's over. I had the chance to have all the glory and get 2 kills, but you know what? I gotta work on my historical battle performance. So I'm Baron. That was the Ki-61. I'm gonna do a few more of these, so let me know what aircraft you think would be fun to try in historical battle. So I'm back, and see y'all next time. So what are we looking at right here?
Looking at some boats.
Yeah, these are some boats.
Some Japanese patrol boats, in fact.
Yeah, so this is going to be a little bit of a preview about all of the naval units and ships in the game so far, what we can expect. Kind of like similar to the ground vehicles video I put out where I show you the screenshots and do our best to identify them. None of this is 100% confirmed. This is just us speculating because that's the whole reason we're doing this, because nothing is confirmed right now by Gaijin.